Art's Adventure is about art, artists, and how art is made. So stop what you're doing and come on along on our next Art's Adventure.
Today I'm going to be doing scratchboard. It is a technique on a clay board where it's a clay on top of the board and you're going to scratch it off with an X-Acto blade, revealing the white underneath. So it's kind of like a reverse drawing. Like with the pencil, you're going to start with the shadows. With the scratchboard, you're going to start with all the highlights. You might lift a little of the highlights out from the shadows.
What kind of tools does a person need to be able to do this?
The first thing you need is a scratchboard, and you can usually get this at Hobby Lobby or Dick Blick. You can get it at a couple of different places. Online art supply stores are fabulous for this. You can get them in different sizes, so you can get them in sheets like this. They can come in, this is 11 by 13. They come in 8 by 10. They come in ones with colors at the bottoms, silver, gold. And then the next thing you need is the most important, aside from the scratchboard, is an X-Acto blade. Make sure that it's a brand new X-Acto blade. The older the blade is, the harder it is to work with it. But the older blades do one thing that the new blades don't, which is they pull up a wider area. So that new blade's perfect for the finer details. The next thing is for pattern paper. And this, I'll show you what to do with this. This is to get that exact replica of something like a drawing of an animal or something, and you want to do it exactly the way the picture shows it. For any of the dust that's coming off, we got the little duster. You don't really need this. You can use your paintbrush. And then for any of those little imperfections, which of course we all make mistakes, so gotta have, this is kind of the equivalent to the eraser in scratchboard, a nice black Sharpie.
So what's the first step?
I'm gonna get one of these out. So now we're gonna take our scratchboard piece. I'm gonna show you two different techniques. First is you can just draw out your picture, and you can just do the picture of the elephant, how you see it, and draw it out. So this takes a bit of skill as far as sketching and what have you. And I like to use a pencil. It's really hard to see unless you're up really close. So you can draw it out, and the pencil creates a nice line to follow. Okay, so you get kind of an idea. Here's the eye. Well, I'm probably not doing a very good job because I'm doing it very fast. So you can draw the pencil markings onto the scratchboard. Or you can go and use your transfer paper. You want to take and make sure that there's two different sides. There's a dull side and a shiny side. The shiny side is what has the transfer powder on it. The dull side does not. So you can set your transfer paper down, flatten it out. I like to use drafting dots because they're not terribly sticky. And we can pull our drafting dots. Make sure this lines up. So we can pull our drafting dots on here, like so. And then we're going to put our drafting dots onto the elephant as well. I don't go all the way around with the drafting dots because I want to be able to check my work and make sure that the transfer is going all the way through. I didn't let it go. I let it go and it's all stuck, and now I can't tell what I had drawn and what I didn't. some pencil, and you're just going to outline the outside edges, anything that you think will make a difference in your drawing. So I'm going around the whole thing. Now I'm going to go on to its bottom. And I don't know if I like that stance, so I may change it just because visually I don't think it looks quite. So I might put his foot over there instead. I'm not sure. Okay. Tail. And there are a lot of lines, and I really want those lines to show up. So I'm going to actually outline quite a few of them. Just in some ways I'm like, oh, I'm kind of cheating, and in some ways I'm going, no, I'm gonna make the best thing I can possibly make because I'm doing it this way. Some people are real purists and you draw it all out. Some people like to just do it like this because it's easier, quicker, and you get exactly what you're going for. It really is up to you what you want. But you'll see that this is really, even though there's a lot of stuff that you're tracing right here, it's going to take a lot of skill to make it really pop and shine. Because right now I am drawing all the dark parts, and we have to go back in and highlight all the bright parts. Now this is where that wonderful trapdoor looks beautifully. Now I can see all the lovely, lovely details. I think that looks pretty darn good. And I did do some Photoshop work to this elephant prior to printing it out because its trunk was not up, because most trunks on elephants are normally down. Like, rarely do you get a good shot of one where it's up, and up is actually the good luck position of an elephant trunk. So I wanted this particular stance with this trunk up like that. So, and you can reuse your paper, your transfer paper, so you don't have to throw it away just because you did it one time. Although it does rip a lot. So this is where you start to kind of figure out what you want to do as far as texture. You keep your reference nearby, and you just kind of figure out what kind of texture you want. I'm going to give the outline first, and you're basically just dragging this, and it's kicking up the clay, that black clay, and it's just an awesome nails across the across the chalkboard kind of sound, which is fabulous. So I'm gonna try and figure out what kind of like texture I'd want to use. I don't want to just make this like one big white blotch. I want it to have like kind of a, I don't know. It's got to have a texture to it though, because this elephant skin is so rough. It feels like a I don't know, like almost a rock, the way you've ever touched an elephant. And so it needs to be that same roughness. It's just the best sound ever, isn't it? Funny story. I was on an airplane once going to Colorado, and I had this tiger print that I was, or scratchboard that I was working on, and this is before they yelled at you for having sharp knives and stuff on the airplane. I was on this airplane, and I was getting ready to sit down and chill while the plane was going to go up in the air, and these guys walked by me. It was obvious it was some kind of group of some sort, and the guy's looking at my artwork, and he's like, "What is that?" I tell him it's scratchboard, and he goes, "Well, it's really neat. Can I show my friends?" And I was like, "Sure." So he takes the piece that I'm working on to the back, and I hear people talking and stuff, and he comes back and he's like, "This is really neat. You know, thanks for showing it to me." And so I was like, "So what are you guys doing? Why are you all here?" And he goes, "Well, we're going to, we just won a big thing, musical competition for a cappella. It was a nationwide competition, and we just won." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's cool. You should, since I showed you my artwork, show me yours." So they did. They started singing a cappella on the plane, and it was really, really cool. So the whole plane just burst out into this like Italian music I'd never heard of before, and it was beautiful. I would have sung along, but I didn't know the words. But that was that piece of artwork right there that got that plane singing. So that was kind of neat. So it's a slow process, this whole process. But as you get further along, like you go into some places and you'll know like this is going to be a big, and this is where I would take the very dull knife that I have and go over these bigger areas to pull out a lot of color, because it's going to take a while. And then the little spots we get. Just awful. I'm following the curve of the trunk and her forehead, so these lines aren't going to be straight across.
No, go ahead, keep going.
I'm showing. It's easier sometimes to get that reference really good if it's like folded and right up next to what you're doing. And sometimes even from a different angle, just because then
Look at that.
you're not looking at it as a thing, you're looking as shadows and light. So I was told that's the best way to draw people, although mine always look like they're a little... Yeah, see, and I would have actually two different knives, one that's been used a lot and one that's not. Like the brand new one would be for all these great little details, and then the old one would be for the big areas that need to be cleaned out fast. So you can clean it out really fast because it's kind of turned into a shovel.
I'm sorry, Kerian, but
there are a lot of like blocky looking pieces in here, so I'm gonna just take and scribble out kind of those spots, because it's almost like a little checkerboard, and so I'm just kind of trying to figure out where they're gonna go. And this is why when I say, you know, you're kind of cheating when you trace, but you're not really, you still have to do a whole lot of figuring out of stuff. It's not quite as simple as tracing it, and I mean the shape will be nice and everything, but it's not. It takes a lot to make it look. When you want the big details, the little details, you go like this, and when you want to pull out the wider lines, you flatten that knife, and it'll pull off more of the stuff. So whenever you do some kind of mistake, I'm going to do it way over here because I don't think you get a mistake that you don't want, you can use a little Sharpie to fill it in. But the issue is that you can...
Once you do that, you can't undo it.
Yeah, it really isn't something you want there. So it's really for like a dot. Oh, you know, you really don't want to be filling spaces, you know, if you just flicked off of there a little bit, because it has a sheen to it.
Yeah. And
you can kind of rub off some of the sheen, but even then, it's still there. And now it's a nice shiny spot. Oh, and the other thing you can do, you can take your transfer paper thing and use it as a thing so your hand doesn't rub oils all over as you're working as well. So I'm just trying to figure out how I want to get that texture, the up and down, along with the side to side, because there's up and down here, but there's also a lot of dark breaks. And I don't want to draw the dark breaks back in. I want to create it without having to draw in black. Sometimes you have to anyway, but not for the real purist of the scratchboarding.
And that's why it's art, not photography.
Yes, exactly. It takes a lot. We can pretend like I know a lot about this, but a lot of times you're still always learning what technique's going to work best with each project. Now, this might look all 100% white, but it really isn't. It has a lot of undertones, so I'm going to make sure that that stays in there. But because it's white, it doesn't have a whole lot of texture, I'm going with really, really tiny lines. So this is an entirely different technique because I'm really trying to make it all the cross hatching as small as possible, so you can barely see that gradation going from dark to light.
I'm afraid to stop recording because you're gonna say something funny.
No, you're right. You can stop recording. I'm not that funny. So now I want to start talking. No, I was always an artist, like, since I was a little kid, and people would always, like, comment on me being an artist and stuff, and I actually won my high school contest for, they wanted to find a new logo for the school, an academic logo, not the mascot, and so they put it out to all the students, and there weren't very many people who tried for it. It was just me and, like, I think 3 or 4 other students. But I guess I was always made for graphic design because I submitted like 20 different compositions, like logo ideas, and everybody else submitted like 1 or 2. And so I was like I guess from a very young age, a graphic designer at heart. You know, like here's your options. We can go with this, or we can go with this, and yeah. So they picked mine, and then everybody's like, "Oh, you're gonna be a graphic designer," and I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm gonna be a painter, and that's it. Just pure artist. I'm not gonna be one of those people who sell out." That's the thing that they were.
Okay, so let's see.
Gotten a bit further.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, I just don't like this part. So the first photo, I'll just give you a visual of it. It's I was at the point of the head, and I don't think we had even gotten that far. I did the ears, and I started to follow the roundness of the ears, because there's kind of a highlight in the center of the ear, because the ear kind of comes kind of like a pillow, so the top of the pillow would have the highlight, and so I created the highlights within that pillow of the ear, and at that bottom flap, kind of closer to the cheek, because it ruffled out, and then I started to imagine what the rest of the body was going to look like. So I started to plot out what that would entail. And then I got to the chest. I found some more references, and I can send those to you. I found 2 references of elephants with the head up, so I could see their underside, so I could see where their breastplate, and the lack thereof of really any muscle mass. It was really just more droopy skin. So I had some great references for that, to just kind of reference my next section of the elephant, because my reference that I created was a kind of an amalgamation of 2 or 3 different elephants. So because of the stance that I wanted, and I wanted that lifted trunk, so I didn't have quite the body that I wanted in that picture for a reference. Pretty close. It's a little difficult of a texture to replicate, so I tried to get that crisscross look between the 2 ripples, because one's going horizontal and the other's going vertical, just to explain my shiv. we lost. I don't know what happened to my X-Acto blade, so in the attempts to get things done, we made a makeshift X-Acto blade holder out of a pencil and some tape. So there we go. Just, I mean, because I know you're going to be looking at it and wondering what the heck that exactly is. That's what that is.
All right.
So, you know. This is where being creative really counts, you know. So I basically just kept on trying to like find the highlights and bring those highlights out wherever it was the brighter, and wherever it was darker, I tried to keep within the darkness as well. So this looks like it could be a little brighter down here. So I'll bring the brightness out a bit on this. And it also has that strong texture to it as well.
Yeah, in the interim here, I've been thinking how do you really describe what it is that you're looking at and what you're seeing, and how to translate that for somebody that maybe is used to, because you're kind of working in a negative image rather than a positive image.
Right. Well, I would say kind of think of it as think of a face coming through water, and then as it comes up, you've got the tip of the nose, so that's the brightest part. The forehead comes out next, the chin comes out next, and so it's the same kind of idea of the tip of the forehead comes out, and so that's going to be bright, and that's, it slowly appears that way. It's coming up from the darkness. And so I'm just bringing lots of texture, and it's really just a matter of playing with the texture. You can take a separate piece of scratchboard and work on ideas of what you want the texture to look like. So you don't have to mess up your piece to play with what the textures are supposed to look like. You can take another piece and practice how it's going to look before you actually do it on your main piece. And you can do this, I mean, that's something you can do in any medium, if you're painting or drawing, and you really got the portrait down really good. Man, those hands are making you nervous. You can go on to another piece, practice the hands, practice the leg, the other parts of it, and once you got it down right, you can go back onto that piece and commit it to that particular piece instead of doing the trial by error on the final product.
So the original image has a white background, but
no, I'm not going to do that.
You're not going to do that.
No, I mean, a lot of people, there's a few artists that will do like trees, or add in some kind of background if they want to. To me, I don't know. Unless I really have a vision of what that background's supposed to look like, I don't like to add things that I don't have a vision of what it's supposed to look like. If I have a picture of it, then I will. This doesn't have a background on it, but the foreground is really, and this was made of this little piece. So like that piece was made with the intention of it being really kind of the focal point, and this was just a piece I was making up the texture of. So I could go a little crazy with the background, but the beauty of this is that it's black and white, and so I love the idea of the contrast. I like the idea of not having anything else to focus on but the actual image itself. So then the next picture of the elephant is when I started to take those references and work on how the front of the elephant's body would look. I'm not sure how much I love this, because elephants all droop a little differently. So I wanted to make sure that I kind of captured that, but I don't know how correct it is. So if anybody has some pet elephants that I can go meet and hang out with and take reference pictures of. I was getting in the texture of the belly, getting that grid of both the this vertical and horizontal pieces to the belly, because the elephant's skin really had kind of a burlap style texture to it, and so I was trying to capture that feeling on her stomach. I think I caught it I still see where I could go even further with it.
Okay.
And then that's about it. Then we worked on the leg and the tail. And the legs and the tails, I kind of didn't get nearly as detailed because one, the reference didn't have as much detail in it. And two, it's a little further away. I don't know. I don't want to give it too much highlight because then it will become too much part of the forefront and not in the background.
Too close,
so, yeah. So it's still, it could use a little more work, but if I'm gonna do that, then I have to brighten up the chest area and the trunk area as well. And I'm not committed to doing too much more brightening up because I like the way that the trunk looks right now. So yeah, that is about it.
That's our program for today. We'd like to thank our sponsors for making this program possible, and we'd like to thank you, our audience. We look forward to seeing you again when we embark on another arts adventure.